Hey guys, it's Brant, and I'm back with another Kiss related video. And today we're going to be seeing if we can improve Paul Stanley's 1978 solo album. Can this album be improved? And I know what a lot of you are saying. If you take off one song, you'll make it a whole lot better. No, 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 no. We're not going to take that song off. We're going to leave that song on. But can this album be improved in any way by not taking that song off? So we're going to dive into that today. And today I have as a guest, I have a first time guest to the channel. This is Tommy from Heels and Quads. They have a YouTube channel. He has a YouTube channel. And I just want to give Tommy an opportunity to tell you a little bit about his channel and a little bit about his origin when it comes to Kiss. And so Tommy, thanks for joining the channel. Thanks for joining and being on the show. And so take it away. Tell us about everything Tommy and about everything Heels and Quads.
Well, first of all, Brant, I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity because, like I told you before we started recording, I was actually a subscriber and a fan of your channel. And, just kind of, I'm getting back into this whole rock, classic rock metal scene. Because Heels and Quads started as a wrestling podcast.
Nice.
Almost 6 years ago. It'll be 6 years in November. And it was started as audio only. We didn't do anything on YouTube. I would, because at first we were on Spreaker, I believe. So Spreaker would like streamline your audio podcast in video form, but there was no video. So that kind of just kept rolling for a couple of years. And I was like, we really, especially 2020 when everybody had a little more time on their hands because the world was nuts.
Mhm.
And I mean,
Exactly.
it feels like it's getting better now. But anyways, so I was like, we really need to start doing video on YouTube, whether it be, that's kind of around the time like shorts really picked up, even TikTok, that whole fad that's gone on now for years. Like TikTok, my wife is constantly on TikTok in bed, like just scrolling TikTok. Um, but anyway, so yeah, and then it just kind of went. We were just kind of like falling out of love with professional wrestling. Like I'm almost 40 now. I'm just like my kids are all out of it now. So I was like, I don't know why we're still doing this. And he was like, well, at first we started we pair a movie and an album from the same year. And that was cool. And we did a few episodes like that. And I was just like, let's just go back to wrestling because at least we know what we're doing. And so we tried that. We probably did another year or so, and then I was just like, I can't do this, man. It just feels so like, ugh, like icky. Like I don't know what else to say but icky. It just didn't feel like it was a good time anymore. We just weren't having fun. And I hate to say that because I know people that, subscribe to our channel, a lot of the faithful out there still love wrestling and I applaud them for that, for sticking with it. But we had to find something different, and our chemistry is just so, mine and my co-host Levi, our chemistry is just so like perfect. Like I couldn't do that main show, and I've since then like branched off to other things. But that main show I couldn't do without him. Like he's the perfect co-host. He's like my brother. He's my kid's uncle. But so I was like, "What can we do?" And he's like, "Well, we both like the same kind of music." Like he's not a big Kiss fan, but he likes Kiss. But we both like, Motley Crue and all those bands. And like you saw it on our last live or two lives ago, we talked about Typo Negative. We both like that stuff. I listened to a lot of that when I was a teenager with a lot of my friends that did a little different activities than I did, but you know, I was the Kiss Elvis guy. So yeah, so I did that. I did Elvis impersonating for 10 years, and that's kind of like
Wow.
my music background is that. Like I traveled and I did that. I managed myself, so I booked all my own shows. Sold out theaters. Like it was a great time. I had a blast doing it, but I like, even in like junior high, I had a band called War Machine. So if that tells you anything, like,
That's nice.
and how many Kiss fans probably had a band called War Machine at some point in time? You know what I mean? So, but yeah, as far as Kiss goes, I mean, if you want to jump in and like,
Yeah. So when it comes to Kiss, like what is your entry? What's your entry point? How old were you? What year was it? What album? What was your first album that you had? What was the first album that you bought that they actually released after you became a Kiss fan? I like hearing those kinds of
Yeah,
stories.
I got you. So when I was really young, my dad was a Kiss fan. So I was born in '87, so I'm kind of late to the party. When I came in, no makeup, all that stuff. But my first introduction to Kiss was actually Kiss Meets the Phantom because my dad had that Good Times VHS that everybody had in the '80s. Back when VHS tapes were like, I think that one was like 20, $25, but back then, if you bought a VHS tape, it was like $40 or more. So that was kind of my introduction, and I just remember Gene scaring the crap out of me. Like that makeup design and just, the way when they're by the pool and they've all got the robes on and he's just like, walking towards the chairs and everything. Scared the crap out of me. Who knew all these years later they'd be my favorite band? But so my dad kind of introduced me to them, also Elvis. My first albums were actually, this is a funny story. My first actual Kiss album, and I said quotations there, was Kiss My Ass, the tribute album, because I was also a big Garth Brooks fan. And I had no idea, even though his first concert special, he mentions Kiss as an influence, and they show him, smashing his guitar and climbing up the ladder and everything, swinging around. But that was my first, like, introduction to, like, really pay attention to their music, and from there, I obviously went back, I got Kiss Alive 3, which had just come out the year before, and then Revenge, and then so on, and then I started like, "Okay, I'm getting into this, like, I want the original stuff that I'd heard all these stories about from my dad, how he skipped school in, '77, December of '77 to go see him on the Love Gun tour at Madison Square Garden, which I always thought was the craziest thing. Like, you skip school to go see Kiss. My dad had like this, like, not really a mullet then because it's late '70s, but the big puffy, like Farrah Fawcett hair. And
So metal though.
and he always told me about this white bass he had, and I always thought that was the coolest thing. Um, but so flash forward, a few years. The first time I saw Kiss in concert was the year 2000 on the farewell tour, the original. And I missed out on the reunion tour. I was still kind of young and didn't really know how to get tickets or how that worked. The internet was still fairly new. Um, and then Psycho Circus came out. Obviously, I got that album the day it came out. I remember like being at Walmart or whatever at midnight to get it. Um, and then farewell tour. Mom picks me up early from school. We start driving. We get about 2 hours because we had to drive. Okay, so we live at the top of Arkansas, which is almost the Missouri border, and we were going to Memphis, the Pyramid, which is now a Bass Pro Shop, a huge one, by the way, if anybody's ever been there. And we get about 2 hours outside of Memphis, and our car breaks down. I'm freaking out because I'm like, I'm not gonna get to see Kiss. What am I gonna do with life? I'm not even a real fan. So I by myself, she puts it in neutral, and I start pushing the car. I'm like, I'm getting us somewhere. And luckily, I mean, we were not even probably a quarter of a mile from a car rental place. So we get there. The guy's like, my mom's like, I really need a car, like ASAP. And he was like, well, what's going on? And she's like, our car broke down. He's pushed it because he's got to get to this Kiss concert. And so the guy's like, "You're going to a Kiss concert? Where's it at?" And we told him, and he's like, I'll hook you up right now." We were in and out of that place in 15 minutes. It was the fastest thing. Nowadays, that would take, hours.
That's
So we
awesome.
finally get there, and Skid Row had just kind of like, was getting close to the end of their set. So I got to see all of Nugent, which was cool. And then obviously, the story, the lights go out, the hum, the
Hmm.
famous hum that everybody knows, and hear Detroit City and just break down in tears. Like I'm just like I'm shaking, I'm crying, I don't all these emotions like, and then you see them and I'm just like blown away. But I've seen him a few times, and then the last time I saw him was in 17, and I actually my mom went with us. I took my little sister, my wife, and all three of my kids. And me and my kids wore Kiss makeup. That was the
That's
last time I shaved my beard.
that's awesome.
And I got to be Paul, naturally.
So, do you have a favorite member? Is Paul your favorite member?
100% Paul Stanley.
All right.
Not a doubt in my mind. I've grown where Ace is kind of creeping up, but Paul is definitely my favorite. But I love them all, and even like I love Eric Carr. I kind of wish I would have been more around when he was in the band because I always heard great stories about him and the fans and how just great of a human being he was. And he actually died on my mom's birthday, which is the same
Hmm.
day that Freddie Mercury died. So yeah, but yeah, Eric definitely Creatures, man. That drum sound is just out of
Oh,
this
that's
world. And I
insane.
know you're a drummer, so you get it.
Oh yeah, I get it. Totally get it. Yeah, that sound has not ever been replicated. That drum sound. It's just
Tommy
like
Lee tried to do it on Dr. Feelgood, but he couldn't match it.
airplane hangar sound
Yeah.
drums. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get into it. Like I said, it's very cool to have you, and I think we're going to have some very good conversation. Tommy had told me that he has been watching the videos, kind of leading up to doing the thing tonight that we're doing, and um, we're actually recording this on the anniversary of Animalize.
Mm-hmm.
So Animalize came out today, and I've already done a let's fix Animalize. I've already done one of those videos.
I watched it today.
So Animalize is one of those albums that I loved whenever it came out. It's weird. It's like sometimes I put Animalize on, and I'm like, man, this album's so good. And then sometimes I put it on, and I'm like, man, this album's got some good songs, but overall, it's not so good. So it all depends on the mood that I'm in sometimes. But today we're talking about the guy that kept Kiss alive during that time. I'm not talking about Vinnie Vincent. I'm talking about Paul Stanley, and I was got some things. I always like to show off some little things here. People always ask about my collection, so I try to show it off every opportunity I get. So this is an original press, and it is a cut corner. It does have a corner cut in the back, and inside it's got the merch form. It's got the poster inside of it, and it is a V-neck, which is not one that you find very often. It shows that it's an early version because after a while, what they started doing was they started airbrushing the neck down there to where that V wasn't as apparent. So this is a actual kind of a German version. You can see the Kiss there. It's not the lightning bolt S's, and this is a what it's called back to black vinyl that came out a few years ago. It's still sealed, and then I have a 180 gram that is still sealed, and then I have the single "Hold Me, Touch Me" that came out of a jukebox
Oh, nice.
because it's got the jukebox thing there. "Hold Me, Touch Me" with "Goodbye" on the back, of course. And we're going to talk about single selections and choices of
Mm-hmm.
singles. And I'm going to propose that, at least I did on mine, I'm going to propose that the single that we would have decided, or that I would have decided to release, would have done so good that they would have released a second single. So I've got two singles I would have released.
Right there with you,
And
buddy.
I've got in honor, I've got my Paul Stanley doll here in my. So we're gonna have Mr. Paul. We're gonna have the doll riding along with us and just hanging out with us. Got Gene over my corner over my shoulder there, and my other Kiss dolls over here. So I've actually got two Pauls. I've got two Pauls and two Genes because I bought Gene and Paul by themselves on eBay. I got them as part of a lot, and then I found somebody in Charlotte last fall that was selling um, all four Kiss dolls in the box. Gene and Paul didn't come in the box when I bought them online, so I bought them in the box.
Are they both
So
the same? Because that looks like it's the muscle version.
This is the muscle version.
Okay. Is the other one the skinny, or is that other one the
No,
muscle
he's
too?
he's muscle as well, I believe.
Ah,
Let me check. Let me check real quick.
let's look.
He's muscle as well.
All right.
So
It would have
yeah,
been cool to have both.
I thought originally that I did have both, but just turns out none of mine are skinny. I thought that one of them was a skinny body, and then after I did went and did a little bit of research, no, but I do kind of keep an eye out for those. So
Yeah.
Paul's going to be off to the side here and letting us know if he approves of our choices or not.
So it's
So
funny because you told me earlier, right before we started, if you've got anything Paul solo album, bring it, if you want to show it. And actually what happened was it's kind of like in my in between phase when I was kind of just doing the wrestling thing like I was talking about. I had a lot of my stuff put up in storage. Well, that said
mhm.
storage got broken into.
Oh,
So I have some of my original albums, but a lot of them I'm slowly starting to rebuy because obviously, like I said, I have 3 younger boys. So,
right,
you know, you can't just throw money away right now. So it's like slowly like cherry picking things I want. But I do have the Soul Station on vinyl back here in
nice,
honor of the Paul Solo album. I wanted to
nice.
have something.
Dude, I know all about stuff getting stolen.
Yeah.
But I moved. I got separated from my first wife in 97, and I was in between places, and I put a bunch of my stuff in storage, including totes of Kiss stuff that I had had since I was a kid, and I had everything. I had the Magic Market cups, I had the notepads, I had everything, the trash can, the radio, the guitar, the lunchbox. I had everything. I had original presses of stuff. I had the polygram issues, reissues of stuff that I'd won at a like a radio contest, and also won press gate passes to get into the asylum tour, and was in between the barrier and the stage, and was allowed to bring in a really nice Nikon camera and had really good photos. And I had those photos and those negatives, and my storage unit got broke into, and that's those totes are the only things that got stolen. So and it
And you
was
also
dirt.
had a full pro shot concert of the Asylum tour that everybody wants.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, so it's it's just one of those things that happened. So
Yeah.
and so everything that I've got behind me and in my room is stuff that I've rebuilt in the last 5 years of
So you were kind of,
buying
I
stuff.
was kind of in the same situation you're in. I'm just kind of slowly getting stuff back.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I had books and books. I'd bought all the remaster collections when those came out, and because, like I said, I'm younger, so I'm late to the party. But like, so a lot of my stuff was like the Spencer's crap, that everybody
Right.
talks about. But even now, I mean, some of that stuff is hard to get.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So, like all the pendants and stuff, like when Psycho Circus came out, they had all those necklaces and stuff.
Hmm.
That's getting harder to find, man.
Yeah, that stuff it is harder to find, and it's anything Kiss, just about anything Kiss pulls some kind of price tag.
Vinyl's tough these
Yeah,
days.
vinyl
Get stuff
stuff.
in good condition. Original pressings are getting tougher and tougher.
Hmm. Hmm. All right, so let's get into this album. I'm going to give a little bit of info about it, and then we're going to talk about a track listing. I think me and you both have a proposed track listing. I want to see how our track listing kind of stacks up against each other. One of the big things that I don't like about Paul's album is I don't like the track listing. I think the track listing is weird, and I think that the songs are really good. All the songs are really good, but I just think that sometimes the way they're placed just kind of makes the album start strong and then kind of peter out towards the end. And I think that with some track listing adjusting, that can be maybe not 100% fixed, but it can be a little bit remediated. So this album was produced by Paul Stanley, and some tracks were co-produced by Kansas producer Jeff Glicksman. Jeff worked on "Take Me Away," "It's All Right," "Love in Chains," and "Goodbye." Paul began recording and self-producing demos prior to the filming of Phantom, which kind of dispels the whole thing that, oh, let's go film a movie, and while we're filming a movie, oh, let's decide we're going to do solo albums after this. Several members of the band actually started on their albums before the Phantom was ever filmed. So he started in February, and he recorded 4 demos in LA or in New York. Sorry, in New York at Electric Lady. He recorded "Tonight You Belong to Me," "Move On," "Ain't Quite Right," and "Wouldn't You Like to Know Me." Basically, the first 4 songs on the album. And he had some musicians he hired. He hired Steve Buslow for bass, Richie Fontana for drums, and Bob Kulick on lead and acoustic guitars. And that's who played on the first 4 tracks that was recorded uh, in in New York. And after he had the first 4 songs mostly finished, he wrapped up in New York and started working on the Phantom. And after Phantom wrapped in late May, Paul went to the Village Recorder in LA, taking Bob Kulick along with him, and recorded and mixed during the months of June and July. In these sessions, he would add Jeff Glicksman as a producer, Eric Nelson on bass, and Craig Crampf on drums, except for Carmine Appice or Appice, however you want to say it.
It's both
On
ways, apparently.
it's both ways. I think him and his brother both say it
Yeah.
different ways.
Yep.
And Carmine on, of course, on "Take Me Away" together as one. In these sessions, Paul would record "Take Me Away," "It's All Right," "Hold Me, Touch Me," which he produced alone and played all guitars on, and used Doug Casados on the piano. He also recorded "Love in Chains" and "Goodbye." He used Steve Lacy on "Love in Chains." And he would single-handedly write 6 of the 9 songs on the album, and co-write "Move On," "Ain't Quite Right," and "Take Me Away" with Mikkel Japp. And Paul experimented quite a bit with his vocals and guitars and recording techniques. He really expanded his abilities, and I think he really plays a really good solo on "Hold Me, Touch Me." And one of the things that Paul had started experimenting with during the Love Gun recordings, you can actually hear it on the actual song Love Gun. He started using an EBO, which is basically just this little device that you put in your hand. It's like a vibrator, and you put it on one string and it vibrates that string, and it'll just keep that string playing until you take it off of it. But you can only you can only play on one string at a time. So Paul said that he would overdub, and sometimes he would use 3 to 6 overdubs to create chords in the songs. And he did this during "Tonight You Belong to Me," "Move On," and "Ain't Quite Right." And if you want to hear what I'm talking about, you're basically listening for something that almost sounds like a guitar that sounds like a synthesizer. It's during the solo of "Ain't Quite Right." You really, about halfway through the solo, you really hear it come in. Um, it's all through it if you kind of listen for it. But in my opinion, I think Paul's a monster on this album. The songs are very well constructed. None of them feel rushed or incomplete. The lyrics feel complete and thought out. The song structures are firm. The dynamics are on point. The recording and the mixing are good. The performances are outstanding. Paul does lead and backing vocals, rhythm and guitar, lead guitar, acoustic guitar, EBOs, all guitars on one track, as well as producing and mixing, all in the time span from February to the end of July, while slipping in a little movie that we all know about and we love. The single release was "Hold Me, Touch Me" with "Goodbye" on the B side. I would have done 2 releases. So 2 single releases. So the last thing I want to say is Paul's album is amazing, but it is not without its faults. And we're going to kind of talk about that, being track listing, the selection for a single, and we'll get into that as we talk about the tracks and the songs and stuff like that. So what I want to know, that's kind of like my information about it and a little bit of overall kind of arcing issue with the album. Do you have anything like an opening statement? concerning the album?
I completely agree with everything you said. I have a lot of notes about song construction and how Paul, is obviously the mastermind behind all that. And I've noticed in past videos you've mentioned, Gene, it takes him 3 or 4 songs to make one song. Paul, on the other hand, he just kind of he works at it until it's done.
Hmm.
And I mean Ace too. I mean, but Ace continuously had a lot of leftovers.
Right.
And I don't think there's any leftovers here. Now there's songs on this that could have fit on Love Gun. There's songs on this that could have fit on Rock and Roll Over. There's
Hmm.
songs on here that he could have saved for Dynasty, but didn't. But as far, I mean, it's really a track listing issue with me. And
Hmm.
obviously, I'm a Paul guy, so I feel like I'm a homer. Like it's hard for me to criticize anything he does, even though I won't see this tour because I'm mentally criticizing things he's doing now.
Right.
And I think everybody knows what that is. I just don't want to
Right.
talk about
Right.
it. It upsets me too much.
Right.
Um, but yeah, and then the single, even though the song that I've had stuck in my head all day is "Hold Me, Touch Me," that wouldn't be my choice for a single. And I mean, I've got notes here, and I don't know if you still want to go through track by track and hit notes or how you want to do it, but
Well, why don't we talk about first thing before we get into the track listings, and why don't we talk about what do we think that we would have released as a single? Like what you said that you had to,
Mhm,
I had to,
mhm,
I picked the A side and a B side for
mhm.
two singles. So since you're the guest, I want you to go first, and you tell me what you would have done. Tell me your
I'm,
first one.
I'm honored. Tonight You Belong with Me would, or Tonight You Belong to Me would be the first single, and I would back that with Love in Chains.
Okay. All right. So my first single, what I would have done is I would have released as the single, I would have released It's All Right. And I would have put Take Me Away together as one on the B side.
Okay, I like it. Very different, but I like it.
So what about the and I when we get down into the talking about these actual songs, I'll discuss why I made decisions
Same thing with me.
for these picks. What's your
Uh,
second?
my second would be Wouldn't You Like to Know Me?
Hmm.
Backed with, let me find it here. It's All Right. So we were kind of like, we know It's All Right's a good song.
Yeah. So my second single would have been Wouldn't You Like to Know Me with Tonight You Belong to Me on the B side.
Ah, and I can screenshot this. My actual note, I didn't want to go too long. My actual note for the Tonight first single with Wouldn't You Like to Know Me, if not its own single with an
Right.
asterisk.
Right. That's awesome. All right. So yeah, so we said one of the things that I don't like about the album is the track listing. And so I'm going to tell. So we know the track listing. We know that the album is only 9 songs, and I think that's all that Paul had because I know I've heard the stories about him writing one of these songs in a deli. I can't remember exactly which one it is. And like It's All Right was one of the
Wasn't he
last.
having like a bowl of matzo ball soup or something
Yeah,
like
he
that?
was having like
Yeah,
a
yeah.
bowl of matzo ball soup, and he
Yeah, that was in
recorded.
his book.
I think he maybe recorded Goodbye or Loving. He either wrote Goodbye or Loving Chains or
Something like that.
something like that. Um, it's All Right was the actual last song that they recorded, uh, and it was late in the it was actually in the month of July that he recorded that song. So I think Paul kind of ran out of time and also just ran out of songs. Plus, he's got some long songs on this album. Some of these songs are upper of 3 minutes and 45 seconds, 4 minutes, 5 minutes. So even though it's only 9 tracks, it's 35 minutes and like 40 seconds. So um, it's pushing being a kind of a long album. I think Gene's is the longest because Gene has 11 tracks.
Yeah.
But
3510. I had it noted.
yeah, 35 10. So I think it's just, and Paul, you have to remember Paul was doing everything by himself, or he was a lot of stuff he wasn't totally by himself. He had engineers, he had mixers, but he was control freak Paul. That's why him and Jeff Glicksman didn't work together very well or very long, is because Paul has himself said that he suffers from demoitis, where once he writes a song, he works it out as the demo, and he doesn't really like to make changes. So that's like go listen to the demo of Love Gun and then listen to Love Gun.
I
It's
was just
this
about to say the same thing.
they're just about
Yeah,
they're identical, except the demo doesn't have a solo.
right.
So Paul pretty much, and Ace doesn't, like you said, Ace is really a lot of Ace's demos, very minor tweaks to a lot of Ace's demos as well. So they have a pretty good focus about what they're wanting to do and how they're wanting to do it. And I think Jeff Glicksman was trying to get Paul to alter in a lot of ways that he really didn't want to alter. So he just didn't.
It's almost like Jeff Glicksman kind of wanted, and I made a note of this. He wanted Paul because I can't remember which song it is, but it's like almost like he was trying to lean him more towards that Kansas sound because that's what he
Mhm,
was used to. And I
mhm.
read that Paul actually wanted Ron Nevison, who ended up
Mhm.
doing Crazy Nights as his co-producer in LA,
Right.
but he couldn't get him because he was doing UFO, I think,
Yeah.
at the time.
He wanted Rob. I don't know who Rod was doing, but that's who he wanted. Um, and uh, and he actually wanted him and Gene both wanted Bob Kulick, and Paul ended up getting Bob. But Gene and Paul both wanted Bob Kulick, and Bob is amazing on this album.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that. Um, so how do you want to do this? Do you want to go down through the songs in their original order, or do you want to go down through the song? Do you want to go be like, okay, what's your first track? And then we'll talk about your first track. And if your first track isn't the same as mine, I'll say what my first track is and we'll talk about it. And then say when we go to your next track, if your second track is a track we just talked about as my first, we'll
I can
we'll
just
kind
say
of we'll
that's
kind of
my
we'll kind
next
of
track.
skip it.
Yeah.
And because I want to kind of talk about the tracks not in the order that they're on the album, but kind of in the order that we would put them on. So,
Perfect.
so everybody
Because
knows. Everybody knows it's Tonight You Belong to Me. Move on. Ain't quite right. Wouldn't you like to know me? Take me away together is one. That's side one. Then it's all right. Hold me, touch me. Love and Chains and goodbye. 5 tracks on one side and 4 tracks on the other.
so I did my track order, made notes in that. And
Okay.
then I made production notes, but did it in my order instead of the original album order because I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I was just kind of copy and pasting titles.
Okay.
And I was like, oh no, that's not what I wanted to do. So now I'm gonna have to go back and forth between my notes.
Well, hopefully it ain't too confusing for you.
It'll be fine. I've got the titles written out,
All
so
right.
I'll figure it
So
out.
once again, I'll let you go first. I am curious about something before we get started. So your side one, is it 5 tracks or 4?
5.
Okay, good. All right.
Okay.
I toyed with the idea of making my first side 4 tracks
I
and
almost
moving
did too.
the 5 tracks to the end of the album,
Hmm.
but I decided to keep it in the same format and just shuffle songs around.
So also what I did was I tried well, there's a flow to it to my list. And I tried to kind of blend in the LA with the New York. So it's not so, front end heavy, back end kind of,
Mhm,
light
mhm.
fluff as we
Because
get called.
Because although it's not a shot, and I want to see if you feel the same, it's not a shot at the musicians because
No, no.
Bob is in both, and Paul's in both, and you have excellent drummers and excellent bass players that really mimic, almost in some ways mimic existing members of Kiss. We'll
Hmm.
talk about that hopefully as we go down through, but but even though it's just both sides have a different feel. Even when you hit the fifth track on the first side, that was the first song that was actually recorded in LA, the feel immediately changes of the album and it carries over into the rest of the album.
Yep.
And the LA and the New York, they have a different feel to them, a different atmosphere.
You
Not
could
a
tell
different
Paul was more comfortable in New York than
Yeah.
LA.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to let you go first with your first song.
No surprise here, I don't think, for anybody. Tonight You Belong to Me continues to be the opener for this album, in
Okay.
my opinion.
All right. So what is your thoughts on Tonight You Belong to Me?
I mean, I don't think any other song could take this spot. I mean, it's possible, but it's just got that, that Black Diamond, I Want You acoustic intro at and then the crunch comes in, and if you're listening on headphones, you got the guitar on one side, you got the rhythm section on the other side, and then it all just kind of blends together, and it's just a rockin' opener, kind of like I Stole Your Love on Love Gun. It's
Right.
just that bang, you get it right away. And because at first, when you first listen to Tonight, it's kind of like, is this going to be like a sappy ballad to start this? Like, I couldn't
Right.
imagine in 78 listening to it for the first time, like, come on, Paul. But then you go back and you think, like I said, like Black Diamond, like I Want You. It's like, whoa, yes, okay, cool. And that bass riff, boom, 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 under it, it's just
Yeah.
it's thick, and it's slick and thick. That's what she said.
and when that kicks in, when it kicks in and it's doing that, well, I like the gong that it's the very beginning. That gong, bum, bum, there's a
Mm,
gong there. Um, and when it starts kicking in that, if you hear in the background, you hear it this just continuously going in the back. That's an ebo. He
yep.
uses it like right out of the gate. He uses that ebo.
Like you said, you can hear it on Love Gun. It's
Oh yeah,
awesome. It's an
yeah.
awesome tool, and it's something, it's different. It's kinda like back in the '70s when Joe Perry and Peter Frampton really laid into that talk box, and everybody's like,
Mm-hmm.
"What is that?" Everybody thought it was a guitar for the longest time, like, my friends even growing up. They're like, "Man, that guitar sounds cool, man. Richie Sambora is the greatest guitar player of all time." And I'm like, "Man, Peter Frampton and Joe Perry was doing that, 10 years before that."
Exactly.
But I mean, I love Richie Sambora, so, um and then the slide, the guitar slide in the second
Mm-hmm.
verse,
Mm-hmm.
um, obviously an excellent solo from Bob, and Paul's singing. He's singing with emotion here, A lot of times, like you've said in past videos, he's very kinda, like, level, to the point Paul,
Mm-hmm.
But here and he's singing about girls that he's involved with at the time, and you can tell he means what he's singing here. Um, and just the mix on this song, it's so well done. Everything's blending together.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, just in my opinion, I mean, I could pick another song to open it, but I think this hit it on the head, and that's why I think it should be the first single, honestly.
Yeah. I like how he continuously the dynamics of it. It's kind of like it's kind of a throwback to "I Want You" off of Rock and Roll Over. The acoustic part is not as long on Rock and Roll Over for "I Want You." It's a whole lot shorter, just a few bars, but it's almost he's doing the same thing. And he's even singing kind of soft. He comes in that "In the morning I raise my head," and then they go back to that. So Paul is showing all the way back on Rock and Roll Over how he calms down after the solo. On this album, he calms down a lot after the solos, or he adds in additional things, additional background vocals, and additional licks on the guitars, or the bass player plays a different run during the chorus or
Mhm.
during a verse whenever they get to the second verse. He throws bridges in. He has songs that he don't even have a solo on. So he's just all over the place with changing things and making it like doing the little things like you talked about, like that slide that's in the second verse, and then he does that even, well, go on and leave me. He does that little scream thing. He just does so little things. That whole I love whenever he comes out of the chorus and they're just doing that "You belong," and he's just holds it out, and then he does the chorus. He does it before the chorus, and then he does the whole "You belong," steps it
Yeah.
up, and then
And
goes
then he
back
goes
into
the,
the last.
"Ah!"
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
does the last chorus, and it's just all frantic, and he's got the guitars playing through it and everything, and it just builds up to that end, and you hear that reverb of everything
Yeah.
when it just
Crescendo.
comes to the end.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, it's just he knows how to write a song. He knows how to write a song. He knows how to perform a song, sing a song. He definitely shows it on this. My notes for this, I will tell you, this is not my first song. Um, so I'll go ahead and tell you. I'm going to go ahead and tell you where I put it.
Okay.
This is actually my fourth track.
Wow. And
This
you've
is
got
my
5 on side 1, right?
the 5 on side 1. So this is close to the end of my first track,
Okay.
my first side.
You didn't have this as a single though either. You had it as a B-side,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because I wanted, we knew these solo albums that for everybody to release one song off their album that was 4 singles. So what I wanted to do, since we kind of figured, okay, the most we're going to get is two songs off this album, 2 singles. Why not go ahead and just stack the B sides with good stuff, not
Yeah.
filler?
Yeah, I'm
You know,
with you.
I love Goodbye, but Goodbye is a filler. It's not a Tonight You Belong to Me. It's not a Wouldn't You Like to Know Me or an It's All Right or even Take Me Away.
Mhm.
So I think that why not just go ahead and stack the B side with something good?
I'm with you.
So but I put I'm not going to say why I put. I'm going to kind of talk about it when I put it where I put it, because I don't want to give away the song before it too much. But I will say that a lot of people might think that number 4 is an odd placement, but I'm going to try it in this spot in the playlist for a few listens, and I am going to put the link to my Spotify playlist, so you can listen to it to see how it works in with where I'm going to put it, because it starts off slow and then kicks in and then builds up and then just ends. But I love hearing the EBO when it kicks in during the chorus. It fills in all the gaps and seems to just soar. I love how Paul has a lot of feedback in his songs. All the feedback. Start listening for Paul's album with your ear intent to listen for feedback. He's got feedback all through this album, especially on the rockers.
Yep.
Listen to it with really good ear pods in or real good stereo, because he takes full use of stereo. There's which we'll talk about in Take Me Away, but I'll mention it now towards the end where it's like it and then goes into that yesterday it's far away. That's so that it's just he is tearing you up with the stereo separation that he does.
Yeah.
But I love how he has it gives it more of a live feel. And I love how he uses the little "You Belong" at the end of the first chorus as a way to turn it back around to the second verse. And he uses part of it to come out of the solo, like I said earlier. These are things that are what constructions are made out of. It's well thought out blueprint songs. So, but I would have stuck it at 4. And we'll find out why in just a few songs.
And mine's on Apple Music, but I can send you my playlist as well,
Yeah.
and you can share it that way too.
Yep. I'll
I
share
think that's
mine
a
and
really
yours,
cool
but
idea.
yeah, to see who, because if somebody has Spotify, we can do Spotify. If they have Apple, they can do Apple.
Yeah.
So my first song of side 1, I'm going to start with an LA Session song. I'm going to start with one of the songs that I think is the most Kiss-like song on this album that could have been on Love Gun. It's All Right. I think It's All Right. The way it starts the second side, it should start the first side, and it should be the lead single, because fans would have heard that and they'd been like, "Oh shit, this sounds like a Kiss album," because it does sound like a Kiss album.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they would have been like, "Man, I think his album would have done better." I've heard different people. It's All Right. I've done lots of track versus tracks and album reviews with people over the years. And I find that it's a toss up with people, whether they like It's All Right or whether they don't. But whether you like it or don't, this is a song that would have been very familiar feeling to the fans. So I think that It's All Right, to me, it's one of the most Kiss-like songs. Could have been on Love Gun. It would have told fans, I'm the Kiss lead singer from the start. He comes out in high gear like his voice does on I Stole Your Love. The bridge on this song is amazing. I'll be leaving in the morning. That bass just driving. Yeah, whoa. He gets that little whoa in there.
Oh, people.
He starts off, oh, yeah. He starts off with, I am Paul Stanley.
Yep.
I'm here to rock your ass off. And that's how it kind of starts with me. The breakdown, the bridge is awesome. The breakdown in lieu of a solo is awesome because I love that. Come over here. I love that. And here's something. Here's something for you music aficionados who love searching deep, putting your earbuds in and searching deep in a song. This song has cowbell in it. It hits sometimes the same time the snare does. Listen for it. You will
I'm
hear it.
gonna have to listen to it as soon as we're done now.
It's a lower mid-range cowbell. It's not at the very beginning when he usually starts in with I'm pretty good at taking care of myself. Listen when that bass and that Gene bass, that do
Hmm.
do 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 do. It's a Gene. That's Gene. I mean, the bass sounds like Gene. Um, but listen for that cowbell. Trust me, it's there. And then here's another technique Paul does. The first time he sings it's the chorus, he's by himself. It's all right if you want me. It's all right if you need me. The second time he comes around, the second verse, the bass gets a little more active. He's climbing around on the notes a little more.
Hmm.
You hear a little bit thicker guitar there. Paul, they do that build up to go and dun 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 dun. It's all right. Paul's singing back up for himself.
Yep.
So then you have the extra layer of music, then it goes straight into the bridge. Um, to me, that makes it sounds very Kiss like. It sounds like he sings back up for himself on Love Gun. It sounds very Kiss like to me. I love the progression techniques he uses. The fact like he doesn't sing backup, have backup singers or himself as backup singer until the second chorus. Yeah, and then the second verse, the bass starts throwing in more notes, more guitars, and stuff like that. So, I think it's all right. It might not be the best song on the album, but I think it's the most Kiss like song on the album. If somebody was putting this down, putting the needle down on it, and going to listen to the first song on this album, I think the first song on this album being "It's All Right" would make them think, "Oh man, yeah, yeah." I think now, what tonight you belong to me. I remember I was 8 years old when these albums came out. My mom went down and got all four of them for me. I had the bag that you got when you bought all four of them. And I remember when Tonight You Belong to Me started, I remember thinking what you said earlier. Wow. I mean,
The hell is this?
what, what, why is it so soft? You know, I remember the only album that kind of have fond and really vivid memories of hearing the beginning of back in the day was Gene's album because of the spooky beginning and Ace's album because Ace's album punched you in the face with that opening snare hit. Ace's album,
Dun, 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 dun,
Ace did what Paul should have done. Ace put a song at the very beginning and said, I'm the guy that sang Shock Me. I'm the guy that sang Rocket Ride. And here I'm gonna sing Rip It Out. And it was an old song. Ace, that was an old song for Ace. And um, so him putting that at the very beginning of his album was no accident. It was very well thought out. So I think Paul should have done something like that also. So what's your thoughts on It's All Right? Or I tell you what, we'll just talk about it. We'll let you talk about it when you get to it on yours.
Well, I kind of want to say it here because it's kind
Okay,
of
go ahead.
funny. It's
Go
kind of
ahead.
funny what happened.
Go ahead.
So Tonight You Belong to Me at number 1. You had it number 4. You have It's All Right at number 1. Guess where I have It's All Right? Number 4.
Before.
So so I have two sets of notes, like I said. So if I repeat something and don't realize it, I'll try to cut it. But if I repeat myself, please forgive me,
Oh, that's fine.
YouTube viewers. Got to get back to that classic Kiss sound before people start to tune out. Simple chorus, but that build is very catchy. If you want, if you want me to stay for the night, you know that. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's my track order notes, and then my
To stay
production. Do you want to do
satisfied.
production notes, or because I can kind of just
Yeah, production notes. Go
okay.
for it. Go for it.
Again, another Kiss classic sound. This could have easily been on Rock and Roll Over Love Gun. There's a little nod to you. It's got that Mr. Speed riff. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's very faint underneath, like right before the bridge and the chorus into that, but it's
Mm-hmm.
almost an identical riff.
Right.
and it's because he's playing so low because he did a lot of this album with a capo on.
Right.
So, and that's why it's so high pitched up like that. But that's, it's also going to show because he's more, I mean, he's predominantly a rhythm guitar player. He's not a lead guitarist. He can play lead, and he does on this album some, but he's a rhythm guitarist by trade because he's a front man. He's a singer. He
Right.
can't do both. It's hard. Like Ace says all the time, I'm a guitarist. I'm not a singer, you know? But yeah, I mean, it's a great classic Kiss sound. You can't fix something that's perfect. I mean, we love Kiss, so it's
Right.
hard to fix a Kiss song. I mean, we can. There's a lot that you can, but but it's a great song, and you're right. It could have easily been on Love Gun.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned songs that you're mentioning songs that you feel like could have been on Love Gun or Rock and Roll Over or
Hmm.
even Dynasty, because I'm kind of doing that myself in my
This is,
notes.
I mean, we kind of have the same, like our channels are very parallel as far as like we kind of do the same things. We
Hmm.
just, sometimes like, cause we do a lot of Maiden and stuff like that. We've done King Diamond. Like, I mean, and that was out there for me. I'd never really listened to King Diamond. And I just, I was like, what is this? And I saw these reaction videos on YouTube. I was like, I got to check this guy out. I'd heard of him, but I never listened to it. And I loved it. I love him now. I think he's great. I love falsetto.
Yeah. Well, and that, and kind of sidebar to something that I'm excited about. We've talked with you whenever I was in your live, and we've talked kind of privately messaging about me
Mhm.
possibly being on your channel or being in one of your lives talking about Typo Negative, because
Mhm.
I can talk about Typo Negative as much as I can talk about Kiss. The problem is you have a harder time finding people who want to talk about Typo Negative.
And Levi's
Um,
the man for that. For you. I
but when
mean,
you do find them, they are very passionate.
yep.
They're passionate to the point that they're rabid. They're very
Yep.
passionate. So I love it when I find somebody that loves Typo Negative.
Mhm. And yeah, I mean, I love them too. And we've always mimicked Peter Steele's voice, just like when we're hanging out, just around each other. And it's really funny. Our wives hate it, but they hate when we're together. But it's a great time. It's fun.
Yeah, I talk to my wife. I'll be like, "Are you afraid of the dog?"
I'm not gonna say what we say because I'm trying to keep it PG. But I've said it. I think it's in one of our shorts I put out recently, but it's bleeped.
All right. So, what is your number two?
I at number two. Let's see where I'm at. I'm track order first. I'm actually. This is the only other song I think. Well, I'm not moving this one. I'll say this. It's "Move On." I like it in this order. When they played it on Dynasty, they played it third after King of the Nighttime World and Radioactive, and then later on they switched it to Let Me Go Rock and Roll. But I just thought it fit really well here. It's another like Kiss song, It's got that adolescent, when I was just a baby, mama set me on her knee. Talking about, how girls really are, all that kind of stuff. It's a kissy song. So I could see why. I'm sure yours isn't at two. I could see why you move it somewhere else, but like with yours, you've got a Kiss song starting it off. I've got a Kiss song in second, and then again at fourth. Like I'm trying to like space it out so Paul can kind of be himself, even though they're all Kiss songs,
Right.
anyways. But I mean, just kind of trying to space it out a little bit. And then my production notes again, it's got that classic. Say that 5 times. It's basically the same thing, but the best part, I love the breakdown. Before the solo. That again,
Yeah.
another good solo.
Yeah.
But that breakdown is so cool.
Paul loves taking it down. He
Mm-hmm.
does. He loves
I
the,
love
and
it.
that's the dynamics. I think that's great. And he doesn't just start at one level and stay at that level. Even in a rocker, he'll sometimes break it down a little bit, strip it down, slow it down.
Yep.
Um, going to halftime on something.
Yep.
He's real good at doing that.
That the time is at hand. I
Hmm.
love that. And
That
then that.
little that little break there and a little bit
Yep.
of feedback and
Ah,
move
so
on and
good.
bring it
Yep.
back in. Yep.
That's the best part of the song to me.
All right. So number two for me, I go to a New York session song and I leave Move On exactly where it is.
Hey, look at us.
Because I think coming out of All Right, it's all right. Da-na-na, da-na-na, da-na-na-na. Da-na, da-da-da. Exactly. It kind of keeps the energy going. It's a great song. Keeps the energy moving. Shows another dynamic by adding the female background singers, kind of like a la Tomorrow and Tonight. Um, this is another very Kiss-like song that would have easily fit on Love Gun or even Rock and Roll Over. The bass line is very Gene, very Kiss. That do 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 do. Gene likes to walk around on the
Take
frets.
that bass for a walk.
Yep, he does, and so it's very. And I like the drive of it. I like the pacing of it. That when I was just a baby, Mama set me. It kind of reminds me of Room Service kind of
Mm-hmm.
feel of a song. Um, I'm feeling no place to go, and I'm a thinking that I'm
I'm
gonna
gonna
scream.
scream.
Has that same feel to it. Um, and the dynamics are there with the bridge that breaks down. The EBO's added during the bridge and the solo. The bridge again after the solo. He comes back into it. The progressions where the bass and the rhythm changes as the song goes, and then the vamp at the end where it Paul's, well, I know, whoa, I know, whoa. I love that. Bob adds a blistering solo, and Paul's like, I love when Paul goes, play that guitar. I love that. I love that.
And
Um,
it's like even like Poison, like CC, pick up that guitar and talk to me. Like
yeah,
anytime they acknowledge what's about to happen in a song, I love it for some
yeah, that's
reason.
great. Um, when it comes to production, the one beef that I have with the recording of this is that the drums, the this song has a demo-ish feel to it, and the drums on this
Muddy.
song, they're muddy. The snare almost sounds like he's smacking on a piece of
It's
paper,
flat.
and it's very back in the mix. And you listen to the other songs that was recorded in the New York sessions, it's not the case. The case doesn't sound the ain't quite right. The drums don't sound that way. Tonight You Belong to Me, they don't sound that way. Wouldn't You Like to Know Me, they don't sound like that way. They only sound that way on Move On. And even the beginning where it comes in, it kind of comes in kind of instead of coming in like ba 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 ba, it comes in like ba 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 ba. It's like the volume is off or the compression is off or something is off where but once it gets going, you don't really notice it so much. I still notice those drums because I'm a drummer and I listen to drums. It just this song just doesn't sound like the other New York songs or any of the other songs as far as the actual sound production, engineer production of some of the parts, not all of it, because the singer sounds great, the Paul sounds great, the guitars sound great, Bob sounds great, the bass sounds great. It's just the drums on this one
Yeah,
um, hurts it for me. But that's my number two. Move on. I'd leave it right where it goes.
that's crazy. I'm actually surprised because I even said, I doubt you've got it here, but
Yeah.
my number 3,
Yeah.
I have Take Me Away in this spot.
All right.
And my reasoning,
So
as
moved it up
always,
too. Okay.
even building a set list for me, I always started with 2 rockers and then I slow it down for the ladies. Just a little bit here though. It's not an all slow song, but it kind of has
Right.
that slow build. It's like telling a story here. Um, but it has that nice slow build, like I said, and you can tell it's Carmine Appice or one of the
Hmm.
Appice brothers, whether it be Carmine or Vic. They just have a different the way they hit, man. And when it does build up, he's hitting those drums. I
Hmm.
love it. I mean, even in Rod Stewart's band, he was phenomenal, and I love Rod Stewart, by the way. And yeah, just his timing, it's just so on in this song. Then I said here, this is the one I can tell Jeff Glicksman produced this one though, because it has that Kansas Sticks Journey, REO
Yes.
Speedwagon,
Totally.
Midwest, Dust in the Wind kind
Fully
of vibe
agree.
to it.
Fully agree.
Okay, cool. But it's got a Kiss flavor,
Mm.
It's got that vibe.
Mhm.
I would turn up the bass just a smidge in the mix in certain spots. It kind of
Mhm.
gets drowned out a little bit,
Mhm.
in the chorus especially. Uh, but that's understandable because again, Carmine, he's hitting so hard, and then I
Right.
even note like, uh, you know, the fill he does right before the solo is just, and
Yeah.
then another great solo. So
Oh yeah.
That's my notes. But I mean, it's a good song, but there's just little tweaks that could have been done.
Right. All right. So I'll talk about that a little bit whenever I get down to mine, where
Okay.
I actually put that, because I did not put it third.
Okay.
What I decided to do was I decided this was another opportunity for me to kind of mix East Coast and West Coast. So I looked back to the second side and I was like, what can I pull here that would really keep the album kind of going, since I have an extended side here with 5 songs? I want to kind of keep the party going. So I moved Hold Me. No, I'm kidding. um,
Hold
so
me.
that's a party pooper. That's the party pooper. I thought I actually, this is my thought process that I did. I'm going to nerd out on you guys for a second, but
Love it. Nerd
maybe
out.
you guys probably did it too. I would listen to the end of Move On, and then I would start. I knew it wasn't going to be Hold Me, Touch Me, and I was like, well, I've already moved. It's all right. Um, I want to keep Goodbye where it is. I wanted to try to keep Goodbye where it is. I'm not going to say that's what I did, because I don't want to give that away. Uh, so I was like, I would end Move On, and I would, okay, how about Wouldn't You Like to Know Me? Or how about Take Me Away? I was trying to find something that when Move On ended, uh, that something else sounded good that started. Because Move On has one of those ends to it also. Um, and so I was like, I think Love in Chains would work really good there, because you have that and then you have comes in that smack you in the face beginning. Um, I moved Love and Change from the second side to the third song, because I wanted to bring some of the feeling and the atmosphere from the second side to the first side. This song rocks and blisters from the beginning, with Bob's solos at the beginning, and he solos all the way through if you listen to it. And Steve Lacy's on it too, so it could be Steve Lacy. Um, this solo sounds like Ace. I mean, if you listen to the solo on Love and Chains, it's an Ace solo. And so it doesn't really sound like Bob Kulick. So I kind of, but I can't find where anybody definitively says it's Steve Lacy. But Steve Lacy was bought in for this song. This solo doesn't really sound like any other solo on the album. So it kind of makes me wonder if maybe Steve Lacy did the solo and Bob did all the little embellishments that's in between the words during the verses. You know, every time Paul stops singing, there's that little guitar that that comes in and does something. Um, I love how Paul sings background on himself. He does the little falsettos, but is it at time? I love that he does that. I like that Paul did a lot of his own background vocals and didn't bring in a bunch of background singers. He didn't dilute his mix. He brought in female background singers for a little bit. He had Pepe Castro singing some background vocals on some songs
He
for
had
him.
the girls from Rouge on
Had
Move On.
had the girls from Rouge Move On. So, but for the most part, he was singing his own background vocals. I love the solo. It sounds like Ace, and I love that the feel that Paul let creep into this song. It has a feel that I really can't describe, but if you just kind of listen to it, like I said, it's kind of like that LA West Coast feel that you get from those songs. Um, I like how he uses the bridge and pre-chorus all over this song. Sometimes before the solo, sometimes after the solo, sometimes both. I mean, not bridge and pre-chorus all over his songs on this album. He does it on this song. He does it on a lot of songs. He will lead into the solo or the bridge or a breakdown with a bridge or a pre-chorus or something like that, and then he comes out of it with it. And I love that he does that. So I think it's a good transition from Move On into Love in Chains, and kind of keep the party going for 3 songs for me.
I like that. Um, I I have it a little further down, not too much further down, but I have it a little further down. And then we
Okay.
already did our 4. I can do Love and Change where I have it though. If you want to keep doing it that way, or how do you want to do it?
What did you have at number 4?
I had It's All Right at number 4.
So you had it all right at number 4. I had Tonight You Belong to Me at number 4.
Right.
So I wanted to say this about that. I wanted to say I decided to slip what is the album opener down to track 4 in order to start to shift gears after the first 3 songs. That's why I didn't want to say shift gears after the first 3 songs. Those who've listened to this album a long time might find this as an odd placement, but try it in this spot on the playlist for a few listens, and you'll find it works perfect in how it slows down the album for just a little bit, but then kicks it back in. And then I basically went and talked about my production notes. So that's my number 4. So what is your number 5?
Okay. And I'm gonna listen to it in your order too after we're done because
I'm gonna listen to yours too.
I'm curious to see the flow. My number 5 is what I would say is the first B side to "Tonight You Belong to Me" or its own single. I think it should be its own single, and I'll tell you why. This is one that I did note that the drums did sound a little muffled at the beginning, but that's the only spot that I noticed it. Um, but as far as why it is where it is, easily the second best song on the album for me personally. Like I said about the B side, whatever. And then I even said "It's All Right," or I could even see "Move On" being the B side to this. And then production, I've got might be my only complaint, the drums just in that intro. That's like I said, that's the only spot, and I think that's really strange. But it's a perfectly constructed rock song, which we all know Paul is great at.
Mhm.
This, I think it could have been a big hit, honestly. It's so catchy. And even when he played it live on the Live to Win tour, I mean, it was flawless. It was
Mhm.
amazing. And it's just catchy.
And this is your
It's got
number
a
this is your number 5?
5,
What
yes. I've
song
got
what song is it?
Wouldn't You Like to Know Me?
Would You Like to Know Me?
Yeah.
Okay, I must have missed if you said that because I
Yeah.
was trying to figure out what song you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I think I have it whether it's the B side or its own single, I think this is a good spot for it. It's
Right.
ending side 1.
Right.
Only problem with that, then you've got both singles on one side. So it's a whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
You can't win. You can try to do this all day long. You'll never win. You're never
Yeah.
going to please everybody,
No. Um my number 5 was I kind of toyed around with moving this song. But the more I messed around with moving it around and trying it, trying some draft playlists and moving it around, the more I moved it, if I moved it up or if I moved it back, I just didn't like the way it felt. So I left it exactly where it originally was. So my track number 5 and my closer for the first side is Take Me Away, Together as One. So far on my things, I've actually done an LA song, a New York song, an LA song, a New York song, and then this is back to an LA song. I've flip flopped between the two. I've got Tonight You Belong to Me flows right into Take Me Away in a way that will give you goosebumps. Try it. Listen to my playlist and listen to the end of Tonight You Belong to Me, the way it ends, and then that to me da 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 da. Dun, 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 dun. It literally gave me goosebumps when a couple times that I heard it. It's just about, I think it's the way the note ends, and it's something about the notes in between the two songs and just the dynamic of Tonight You Belong to Me. It's like you're jumping off a cliff, and then Take Me Away starts so slow, so far down. Um, there's nothing I can say to improve Take Me Away. Dynamically, sonically, writing, production, performance, it's a masterpiece. It's probably in my top 5 favorite Paul Stanley songs. By the end, it progresses into a loud, frenzied opus. It climbs up and down, moving its way to the solo, and then it builds as the solo goes on to an amazing ending that has the amazing ending that it has. And this closes my first side. Um, so I I couldn't try to even begin to fix "Take Me Away Together" as one if I wanted to.
It's the
Um,
combination of Paul's vocals and that Appice strumming.
yeah, yeah, and just the guitars that Paul
Yeah.
has in it, and the production that I honestly think that Glicksman actually really helped, because this is one of the fuller sounding songs, and when it gets into the thick of it being that middle part, and then that crescendo after the solo, it is so huge. There's so many. There's ebos there. There's so much guitars there. I'd love to see how many tracks actually that was. How many tracks they actually ended up having to bounce down, because I'm sure they were bouncing the Ebo tracks down to probably a stereo track, because the Ebo even sounds like it's in stereo. It doesn't sound like it's the same thing across the board in mono. So, but yeah, there's it's a masterpiece. If Jeff Glicksman was on this album for one song, then I'm glad he was on this album for that song, because I think he did bring something to that song that Paul wouldn't have probably had, had it just been Paul by himself.
I'm with you, man. I really love that song, and like I told you earlier today, I was been listening to this album now for basically 2 months straight. Feels like, and that's one like I never really overlooked it, but it's like it's grown on me a lot more in the last couple of months. Listening to it more and more, and I'm like,
Hmm.
man, this song really does kick ass, you know.
Hmm.
And even and I said, it had that Midwest rock vibe that sticks, REO Speedwagon Journey kind of vibe. Nothing wrong with those bands. I like all
No.
those bands. So, and Kansas too. So I mean, it makes sense. And I see what he was doing. He was probably trying to get Paul to kind of like waver his, like, hey, let's try this, like just let me have a little bit of control here. And Paul's,
Hmm.
we all know how Paul is. He's like,
Right.
no, this is my baby. Kiss is my baby.
Right.
Um, but yeah, no, I couldn't really fix anything on that song
No.
either. It's great.
Just even whenever Paul opens with "Tonight You Belong to Me," there's some weird suspended chords there at the beginning of "Tonight You Belong to Me." Um, but whenever you get to the chords, those opening notes and that chord progression of of take me away before Paul actually starts singing, um, that doesn't sound like something that Paul would usually do. That's
No.
not in his usual wheelhouse.
Mm-mm.
So that's how, and it is very dust in the wind, sound slow, like a dust in the wind kind of strum, very slowed down. Um, but Paul puts his spin on it, and like I said, I know that it was, I think it was him and Mikhail Japp that actually wrote the song. Jeff Glicksman doesn't really have any songwriting credit, but I've been in I've been in recording albums and stuff before, and a producer can have an influence on a song without actually contributing a note to the
Right.
song, and not getting a songwriting credit. So I definitely think there was some real heavy influence from Jeff Glicksman on that. All right, so we've flipped our vinyl over, and how are you going to pull the fans back in with your first track on the second side?
Okay, and I'm gonna start off side two with a rocker. Another catchy hook. It's Love in Chains. Love the
Nice.
drum fill while Paul is singing Love in Chains. There's that little pause and then that double drum beat. You know what I'm talking about? You
Mhm.
know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
But people.
Yep.
Yep. Another well mixed song. Probably my second favorite of the Glicksman tracks. And the background vocals are so Kiss. Like you can
Hmm.
almost, even though I think it's Paul just singing over Paul,
Hmm.
it's like he's doing it in a way like, hey, if we ever did this live, Gene's got to be
Yep.
able to do this. So it's
Totally,
like,
Gene.
yeah,
Yep.
it's like that Doctor Love, when they're doing the
Mhm.
background. It's
Yep.
back and forth. Um, yeah, that's. Let's see, what else do I have on it? Um, I feel like it's buried in that 8th spot. It's kinda, like, the song to me, a lot of times before the final song is kinda like a death spot.
Yeah,
for me, because
right.
everybody's like, okay, I know, because especially when you're listening to a vinyl, traditionally, we all know the story. You got the big earphones on, and you're looking at the cover, and you're looking at the liner notes, especially us Kiss nerds, and you're looking at the back, and or the lyrics if they have it, or what, you're always looking at something, and I feel like when you get to that 8 spot on a 9-track album, you're like, oh, it's almost over. I'm gonna
Mhm.
I'm gonna move on to something else here. But
Yeah,
I think,
the next to last track on the album is usually always guaranteed filler.
yep. And Love in Chains is not filler to me.
It's not filler,
I think
no.
it's
I
a
don't think
great
so either.
but I think it's a good enough rocker to open side two, and another catchy chorus with that stop stutter step kind of, like I said, on the drums. It's just that
Mhm.
in chains. I love that. I think it's a great song. I think a lot of people overlook this song as far as Kiss fans. I don't think non-Kiss fans really know this song, but
Right.
as far as Kiss fans goes, I don't think this song gets enough love.
No. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. All right. So my track one of side two, I'm going to pull a track from the first side. I'm going back to the New York sessions. And this is a track that every time I hear it on the first side, it always has I've just flipped the album and started the next side of the album feel to me. So I decided, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pull it from the first side of the album and I'm going to stick it on track one of side two. I start my side two, track one. Wouldn't you like to know me? Just
Oh,
that build, that whole and they break into that and Paul comes in with that "I stole your love" type, you know, lyric. I feel like this is another uh, side opener, so I move it. This is another very Kiss-like song that could have been on Love Gun or Rock and Roll Over. The structure and the performance is very Kiss-like. Great progression, great structure. The pre-chorus is great. That you keep on calling, but you're much too late.
eh.
Got the key, but baby, lock the gate. That's Kiss. That's totally Kiss. And the breakdown after the solo, that would just breaks down where it's just the drums, and him just playing that on the rhythm. The bass drops out, and then it comes back in with that guitar, like it's and the drum fill back into the chorus. Um, it's I love how they do that. And this is like I said, I would have put this as a single. This would have been my single that I would have done. I love "Wouldn't You Like to Know Me." It's one of those songs. It's a Kiss song. It could have been it could have been on a Kiss album. Uh, so yeah, so that's how I start my side. That's how I start my side two.
All right, moving along.
No,
I feel like everybody's like waiting for this. Let's just get it out of the way. Hold me, touch me. Um, if you're removing it, I get why you're removing it. I totally get it. It's very TV theme esque, especially at this time with Welcome Back, Cotter, and everything.
Mhm.
Welcome back. The way he starts it out, it's my next notes, the production notes. It's his Folgers commercial meets
The
Greatest American
best
Hero.
part of waking up is hold me, touch me. Yep. Yep.
And I love the Greatest American Hero theme song. I think it's a great song, but it look at what's happening to
Oh, I
me.
know that you are sleeping.
I can see Paul singing it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. He
got a
start
who's the boss kind of, my
in
two
two
bats.
in two bars, Paul goes from singing like as low as he can to
Yep.
a falsetto.
Yep.
Though I know that you are sleeping, though there's something I must say. It's like though the road may want my love will find. It's like, yeah.
I personally don't mind the song. I get why Kiss fans don't like it. I don't think it should have been a single. In fact, I will go to my production notes and tell you. Uh, I get why he did it. Maybe try to talk him out of it if we're in the producer's chair. But also like try to talk him and the label out of not making it the single. If we're
Right.
only having one, like let's not put out the TV theme slash coffee commercial.
Right. Right.
Let's put out a Kiss rocker. You're the front man of the hottest band in the world. Like, let's
Mhm.
show that.
Don't put out a ballad,
Don't
you
put
know?
don't put out a ballad.
Yeah.
Save that for Hot in the Shade.
Yeah,
Save that for
I wouldn't even stuck this on a B side. Leave it on
No.
the, I'll let him put it on there so
Yeah.
he can express that side of himself. But I'm going to bury it so deep in this album.
And I will say, like I said, burying it at number 8. I know this is not there, but I wanted to put it there. But I moved something that I think could not get buried at number 8. That's why
Mhm.
it's not number 8, but
Yeah.
it could have easily been number 8 for me.
All right. So my track number 2 of side 2, I felt like the way "Wouldn't You Like to Know Me" just kind of fades out. So since it's fading out, I was like, okay, we're on the second side. Let's pull another New York track. Let's pull another song from side 1 and put it in the number 2 spot. So we're going to fade out "Wouldn't You Like to Know Me," and we're going to come into burr, 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 I love that. You were standing of all the times that I spent hanging, that little jazz thing,
Mhm.
just so great, so great. Ain't quite right. I moved it from the second song on the album to the first side to the first from the first side to the second side as the second track, and brought a little bit more of the New York vibe that I feel the first side has to balance the LA sessions. Um, the second side will still be a song short and not as upbeat as the first side, but I feel like this song transition, um, it transitions best to the next two songs. It transitions good from "What You Like to Know Me." I chose to keep on the second side. This is a super mellow song. It's just a great song. The EBO is strong in this one. Um, Halfway through the solo, that amazing Bob Kulick solo and those building and the changing of the chords that's under that. And Bob has that solo that he just kind of starts off and he just lets it breathe. He has some pauses in between his phrases, and he just lets the solo breathe. And I know that's a strange terminology for it, but he just does, and he just carries it out in such a good way. Um, but the EBO comes in through that. You'll hear it. And the bass is also very Gene during the solo. That it does some real cool bass drum. Um, I love the dynamic soft start when he's like, "I got closer to see what I found." Bah, 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 bah. I mean, just that little syncopated stuff, those offbeat things, and then it kind of settles back down to the bam, bam, bam. And he comes in with that falsetto again in the morning, moving easy. I mean, it's a soft vocal Paul that you have in "Hold Me, Touch Me," but you have good music around it. Good. um, but
It's soft singing Paul, but it's a good song.
the song kicks in a few times. The bass is very Gene. The song kicks in, especially around the solo, but for the most part, it remains mellow, even all the way to the end of fading out. The solo and the music under it and in the song is amazing. Bob does a great job of cramming in all these notes when he wants to, and then letting solo breathe in other times. The slow, mellow fade out of this song slides very neatly into my number 3.
I
That's
like
what
it.
she, that's what she said.
Before I move on to my number 8, I do want to add this
Move
one
on.
quick note. Move on.
That's what
Uh,
she told me.
if we are adding a song, this is where I put an added song at number 8. Because I mean, I felt like traditionally it was 10 songs for, Kiss album. Like you said, Gene's had 11. So why does Paul's only have 9? Yeah, there's some longer songs, but it's 35 minutes. We couldn't squeeze another, quick 3.5 minute song. Um, but maybe he didn't have anything left over from Love Gun, and maybe that's why they did. Then she kissed me. um, but knowing Kiss wasn't gonna put live like Magic Touch, if somehow and space time continuum, like we could have had that just a little bit early. Maybe Magic Touch could have been on the Paul solo album. Granted, that takes away a lot from Dynasty because that song is so like. And I know you
Hmm.
just did Dynasty last time, but I wanted to just touch on that because Magic Touch is a fantastic song, and
Yeah.
it feels like you can see Paul progressing here as a musician, not just vocally, because he is building to that '80s peak Paul where he's hitting all the runs and doing the Whitney Houston thing. Um, but then it changes the whole track listing. So I mean, I see why we wouldn't add a song, but that's like if we were taking away "Hold Me, Touch Me," that's why I would add a song here. But my number 8 is your number 7. Ain't quite right. And like I said, I wanted to put something here that wouldn't get buried,
Hmm.
because it is a strong song. But Love in Chains, I wanted to open up side 2 with kind of a heavier rocker, and this one kind of starts with that ding ding ding.
Right.
Um, I really like this one. Like I said, I don't want to bury it. I feel like notes were not needed now at this point because I can just riff on it.
Hmm.
While this is one of those New York produced tracks that was a beefed up demo, basically, Paul knows the sound he's going for, and I mean, he is that Kiss sound after all.
Hmm.
So basically, what I've noted before is what I noted here. I mean, it's a great song.
Yeah, it
It
is.
that Ebo man, it really did a number on this record in a good way.
Hmm. Yeah, a
So
lot of people don't really realize it. I hope they watch this video and then they go back and they listen to it with a new appreciation of the thought and the care that Paul put into basically, except for 3 tracks, writing this album and producing this album by himself. He did a great job. Could have turned out a whole lot worse.
it's a precursor to him becoming, the captain of Kiss when Gene moves on. Like you said, we're recording this on the anniversary of Animalize.
Hmm.
I mean, he produced that album. And I mean, this, granted, I mean, I think this is way better than Animalize, obviously, but I mean, he was cutting his teeth here
Right.
as far as like producing because they always had Bob Ezrin or Eddie Kramer, somebody of that magnitude, helping him out, and now he's like, I've learned enough watching those guys do it, now I'm going to show you what I can do.
Hmm. Yeah, and it just shows you the ability that he had to write quality songs considering less than 2 years after he makes this album, he's going to be making another album and putting songs on it like their biggest song, uh, whether you like it or not. I Was Made for Loving You, Sure Know Something, Magic Touch. I mean, 3 amazing songs.
Look at
That
Spotify. I mean, it's right there in front of everybody. I Was Made for Loving You's at the top.
Yeah. So he has this ability to, he had this ability to write songs, and he was good at it. All right. So my number 3, it's not no secret at this point in time. I buried this one at the number 3 spot, the next to the last song on the album. I didn't want to take it off the album, and I didn't want to replace it because honestly, I don't think Paul had any gas in the tank at this point in time. I went online and I was looking for demos that might have been left over from Love Gun. There weren't any. I tried to find demos from earlier times that Paul, maybe from Rock and Roll Over or Destroyer, that didn't really get used, that sounded like they would have added to this album. And if I'd found 2, I would have maybe it probably made it a 10-track album and took Hold Me, Touch Me off. But I figured, well, what I'm going to do is we're going to work with what Paul had, and I'm going to work with what Paul had. So I knew I had to keep it on the record. I dang sure wasn't going to close the album with it. So I stuck it at track number 8. So Hold Me, Touch Me, Think of Me When We're Apart is LA Sessions. This is a song a lot of people love to hate, and they could say you'd improve the album by telling Paul not to record it at all. but I would let Paul keep it on even in almost the same exact way he did. I would not release it as a single. It would have been buried 8 tracks in the album. The only reason I would not put this song last is because my chosen tracks goodbye. It had to be the last track. Um, this song has actually grown on me over the years. It's not a bad song. It's too soft. Yes. Is it AM Gold? Yes. Is it a Folgers commercial? Yes. Could it have been the opening to an 80s sitcom? Yes. But it is what it is. And it's another facet to this masterpiece that he created. I don't think that it blemishes the gem too much. Uh, but the solo that he plays is amazing, saves the song for me totally. That solo is top shelf, and it gently ends the song and slides into my closing rocker, my rocking closer. So
So we both mentioned that it's a Folgers commercial. We both mentioned that it was a TV theme song, and I said that because I did I'm doing my rankings of the Kiss albums, and even in the Paul Stanley video, because I have it obviously of the solo albums, it's second to Aces, but like just sell it to a TV show. One
right,
of those producers back in the Mama's Family, so
right, right,
anything
right,
is record it all you want. Just use it for something else, or just
right.
bury it like you did. I like that. Our thought process is the same. Like, let's bury a song.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm also with you as far as the closing track. Um, my closer is Goodbye as well. This stays here and closes. I mean, it's in the title, and let's face it, like I said, with the build of an album, if it ain't quite right, goodbye, even if it's just temporary.
Right.
My production notes, I had to do a little pun, in there.
Yeah.
I really do like the bombastic opening of this one. While it closes the record, whether it closes the record on the original album or even me as a producer, it's got that sound of a closing song, but it also sounds like the opening of a Styx concert. So that's there's another Styx reference for you. Maybe tweak the drums just a little bit in the mix, because I feel like Paul goes up an octave, and even that kind of gets drowned out because the drums are a little high in the mix during the chorus. But the guitars and bass are perfectly mixed, I think. Um, and then yeah, just maybe lower it just a little bit, just a smidge.
Um, Track 4 for me, Goodbye, LA Sessions. I love the way this song soars when it opens. The drum fills at the beginning. I love, love, love the long chords and that da na 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 na. And then when it starts off, that that bass. And then whenever it does the da na, like the long notes. Ain't it funny how the time slips away? Da na, now I'm leaving and I wish I could stay. Dun, 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 dun. This has a Kiss song feel to it. Could have been if he wrote it quick enough, it could have replaced "Then She Kissed Me" on Love Gun, and it'd been a better album. But I love it. I love the little riff in between the parts of the verses, the bridge. I'm on the run. I love that
Yeah.
part. I know that you know. Da, na, 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 oh, goodbye. I mean, it's awesome. I love how little solos get added in between parts of the verses. All these songs are masterclass. Even Hold Me, Touch Me. All these songs are masterclass on how to construct, perform, arrange, and progress a song. If somebody was wanting an exercise and learn, how do I write a song? How do I structure a song? How do I audibly progress a song and dynamics of a song? Listen to this album. You will learn how to write a song because he's it's a masterclass at it. Ace's album is a masterclass in its own way. So that'll be one that we'll be getting to in the future. It'd be cool for you to come back for that one.
Sure, man. I'd love to. I just did Ace's album, so I might actually still have my notes for it, honestly. But yeah, I mean, you can go to our YouTube and find that. I've got it all
Yeah.
in a playlist. What I've done so far.
Yeah.
I just did Destroyer, and I feel like some people are gonna hate me for what I said about Destroyer, but it's just my opinion. People are
People
gonna
have
hate
a
what I people are gonna hate what I have to say about Love Gun too, but
people are now you might get some hate over Love Gun because but
Well,
I think the only album that you really can't talk about and get not get crap for is Rock and Roll Over.
mhm.
Rock and Roll Over, you talk about Rock and Roll Over, you're going to get hate. But I think you can talk bad about Destroyer. You can talk bad about Love Gun. You can talk bad about the First Kiss album. You can talk bad about Hotter Than Hell because both those albums don't have the greatest production. A lot of people they'll let you talk crap about Dress to Kill because the songs are too short. They don't sound like they're fully completed and fully thought out, and they sound
Barely
rushed.
30
They
minutes.
sound rushed. Rock and Roll Over don't even have a Rock and Roll All Night don't even have a solo.
That's my
Um,
biggest gripe.
you know, so it's it's a very rushed album.
What did
Uh,
I had Dress to Kill at 7, and then I had Destroyer at 6, and number 5, I should be doing tomorrow. I'm actually doing it in the morning, so it'll
oh,
be out before this airs.
Sweet. Yeah, this will probably air probably I usually put videos out on Friday. So since I'm going to have to edit it too much, this may be out this Friday.
Cool.
Um
Awesome.
the next album I'm going to do is I'm going to do Gene. The next album I'm going to try to fix is going to be Gene's solo album. I'm probably going to squeeze in some other videos doing other things in between those, like my New York trip. I've got a bunch of stuff that I bought from Canada and other places that you can't get here in the United States as far as food goes. And I want to do a taste testing of some of
Love that
those.
kind of stuff.
So I want to do that. Before we close, I was just looking at the back of Paul's album and
Mhm.
looking at the set and looking at the songs on the back of the album, and you could rearrange, arrange the songs on the back of this album to tell a love story. So you could start with not the song, just listening to the titles. You could start with "Wouldn't You Like to Know Me?" You could then say, let's see, uh, "Tonight You Belong to Me." Then you could say, "Take Me Away Together as One." "Hold Me, Touch Me." "Think of Me When We're Apart." "Love in Chains." "Ain't Quite Right." "Move On." "Goodbye." So
I
basically,
you know, I
boy
I I
meets girl, boy breaks up with girl.
I know that I knew that album is not in order as far as track listing on the back. I've
Yeah.
never really noticed that, and I kind of want to almost listen to it in that order
Yeah.
because it almost makes more sense.
Yeah, it really does. It really does.
Because you can tell. I mean, honestly, you can tell there's a storyline here.
Well,
There's
during this time, Paul was dating Cher's sister,
yeah, and another chick too.
Giselle or whatever,
Yeah,
and he also had a crush on a woman that worked in uh,
uh, Carol
How
K.
Carol K. Howard Marks's advertising company, and he kind of pursued her till he got her, and then once the chase was over, he was kind of you know. That's Paul. He was about the chase, you know.
I think some
Um,
of us have been there.
yeah, I've been there quite a bit myself. You want something till you actually get it, then you don't really
Eh,
think you want it so much anymore. But yeah, so it's funny. I'm actually going to have to maybe make a playlist and list it that way. Um, but I am going to put the link to your playlist, and I'm also going to put the link to your YouTube channel in down in the description, and you guys can go over to Heels and Quads and check Tommy. And what'd you say your friend's name was?
Levi.
Levi.
Hmm.
So once again, before we leave, go ahead and give the give the information about your YouTube channel, your Patreon. Throw those links out there for the people, and I encourage everybody to go over and check these guys out. Give them a thumbs up on their videos. Give them a
Yeah.
subscription. They're not as long winded in their videos as I am.
I can. It depends on what I'm talking about. Like today, when I was talking about myself in the beginning, we can cut like half of that. I
I
was
know.
getting winded.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so social media everywhere at Heels and Quads. I even like post like most of our shorts that are on YouTube. I post on TikTok as well, and some Instagram reels. I like to reuse content so everybody kind of has a chance to see it. But yeah, patreon.com/heels and quads. That's where the money's at, you know?
Right.
So once a week I do a hangout with my patrons of Patreon. And I've actually since quit drinking. But we used to just get together, drink, and we'd at first watch wrestling or whatever. Now we just kind of just shoot the breeze or whatever. Every once in a while, we'll listen to an album or random. Everybody will pick a song and we'll just talk about it, um, and listen to it as well. But also, we've played games in the past, like we've played Match Game and the long microphone and everything. We've done that. Um, but yeah, it's a good time. And then at the end of every month, me and Levi get together with everybody, and kind of everybody on our Patreon is like a character now. They've all kind of, they all have podcast ideas where they want to be on the channel because it's become like this conglomerate of different shows on one thing, and eventually it'll branch out. But yeah, I mean, it's all good group of people. They're all fun to hang out with, and they're all characters. That's for sure. They're very pro wrestling. They're all their own little gimmick. Um, but yeah, and then football season started up, so we started a fantasy football league with the Patreon. So if you want to sign up for that, come do it. It's awesome. I love everybody over there, and Brant, I just want to thank you for having me, man. It's a blast.
Hey man, no worries.
I
Definitely
love
have you.
talking Kiss with somebody who knows Kiss.
It is more fun. It is more fun. Well, I'll definitely have you back on for Ace whenever we get around to Ace. Ace will probably be sometime in November. Like I said, Paul's going to be September. Gene will probably be sometime in October.
Makes
So
sense.
Ace will probably be sometime in November.
Yeah. And
And
then I'll have you on. We'll do something. Maybe we'll do typo,
it's awesome.
and
I'm always up for talking some typo.
you and Levi can geek out, and I can refresh my memory because it's been a while since I actually listened to typo. So
All right, man. Well, that's all I've got. You guys know where to find me. You're looking at me right now. You can also find me on Instagram. You can find me on Twitter, and you can find me on TikTok as well, all at In My Head channel. On my TikTok, I basically show off stuff inside my room. Or if I'm out and about somewhere and I feel like making a video, or if I'm in Walmart and I find that a decision has been made because somebody's dropped off the 20 pack of baby diapers on the beer aisle and picked up a case of Bush, a decision was made.
I
So,
watched that today. That was great. One more thing before you sign off. My Instagram, my Kiss Instagram that you messaged me on,
right.
Creatures Asylum on Instagram. That's gonna be at some point. I'm gonna have a Kiss show, like all Kiss show on our channel, and working title, but that's what it is. Creatures Asylum. Put two albums together, and that's what you get. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no worries, no worries. And and I've had people asking me about, for those of you who watch this late in the video, this is information is for you. I've had people asking me about when's live's going to come back. When's live's going to come back? They'll probably come back sometime in the winter, the fall, maybe the first one in November. My September and October are smashed and full. So maybe do some lives in November, December, January, February, somewhere around there, one a month. I'm not sure of the night. Wednesday is not the best night for me anymore. They might end up being like a Monday night live, kind of starting our week off right. We might have had a crappy Monday, so let's hang out and let's talk about Kiss or 80s music or whatever it is we want to talk about. Um, so we're going to do that, and I do have my trip from New York coming out, where I went to the Dress to Kill poll. That video is going to be coming out, and also I've got a surprise coming up for the month of October. In Our Heads video is going to be coming up, and I'm not going to say what it is just yet, but it's going to be really cool, and it's going to be a way that we're going to celebrate Phantom In Our Heads episode, and all the gang will be there. All the familiar faces, maybe some new faces, maybe it's some surprise faces will be in that episode where we are going to be celebrate Phantom in a very unique way. So be looking out for that. And then of course I'll be doing more Road to Rosemont videos with Rob from Right Between the Eyes, and Xander from Kiss Army Things, Emily from Emily Graziano. We're going to be doing more Road to Rosemont videos leading up to us going to the fourth to last Kiss show on November 27th in Rosemont. So we're all going to be able to meet each other and hang out together and probably make a podcast together doing that. So anyway, lots of exciting stuff happening in the next few months and weeks. So hope you guys are along for the ride. Hit the subscribe button if you hadn't already, and leave a comment down in here. Well, how would you improve this album? What would you do to fix Paul Stanley's album? What do you think of it? Can it be improved? Is it perfect just the way it is? Even track listing. Do you agree with anything that we said? Do you disagree? Do you just want to fight? Do you just want to tell us how awesome we are? Just put that down in the comments, and check out the description for the links to the playlist we talked about, and for Heels and Quads links that I'll put in there too. Until next time, guys, I'm Brant in the Head Channel. He's Tommy with Heels and Quads, and we'll see you in the next one.